What's going on YouTube? Today we're going to talk about the Native Instruments Komplete Kontrol MK2. This is the S61 version. I'm not going to go into great detail, it's going to be a short video. A couple of things I want to tackle are, again, should I upgrade if I have this, or is this thing even worth it at all? So I want to hit those two questions to, in the end, help you make a purchasing decision to decide if this is right for you. Now, one of the most important changes to this year's model is the DAW integration. So they've completely changed the form factor of this keyboard, and it allows you to navigate your DAW, whether it be Ableton or Logic, some other ones later on in the year, to help make your audio production a lot faster. There's a great video that Native Instruments put out showing the DAW integration and how you can navigate your software using the keyboard. It makes things a lot easier when you're trying to lay down new tracks. And to me, it's the most innovative thing about this keyboard. So for instance, say you use Ableton in live sets. I know like a lot of churches use Ableton to trigger all their songs and their entire set list. And so you can also control Ableton with the keyboard alone in order to make changes on the fly and do all kinds of different things. I encourage you to check out that video because she goes into great detail about the ability of this machine and how you can integrate it into your workflow. Now, me personally, I use Pro Tools, and it does not work that well with Pro Tools as far as being able to navigate Pro Tools on the keyboard alone. Now you can change and switch sounds on the keyboard itself when you're trying to find new sounds for new tracks, and that's fantastic. And I hope that one day they'll work together with Pro Tools in order to make this machine be able to do the same things as it can do in Ableton and Logic as well. Now, another thing that I found pretty cool when I was messing around with this is that I can use this pretty much the same exact way as I can the Maschine MK3 or Mark III, sorry. Meaning you can change scenes, you can lay down new tracks, you can stop, start, record, automate effects. There's everything that you can do on the Mark III Maschine, you can do on the Mark II Komplete Kontrol, except sampling. You can't use this keyboard to make any changes to samples or load samples in and chop them up. You can't do that on this. But everything else you can do. So if chopping samples isn't your thing, you can pretty much do everything right here on the keyboard as well. Now let's briefly go over some of the new features of the Mark II. They've added these two new screens just like in the Maschine Mark III or the Maschine Studio, making this a great way to visually see all the samples that you have. You can browse through all your contact instruments or any other NKS product that is supported through Native Instruments. You can browse through, and they've also added a pre-hear sample library that every time you scroll through all the samples, you can kind of hear what it sounds like before loading in, which saves a bunch of time and saves a bunch of loading time, which everyone hates that. So that's a great integration into this. They added the 4-directional push encoder so you can navigate the screens. They've also brought back the pitch and mod wheel. I know in the Mark I, that was a big complaint, and they've listened to the consumer, brought back the pitch and mod wheels, and moved the touch strip to the bottom. It's just a great change that they've made to this keyboard to make it more dynamic. Now, another question you may be asking is, can something like this replace an actual workstation keyboard? So like the Yamaha Motif, the Roland X series, the Korg series, Kronos, Triton, all of those things that you can record directly onto the keyboard itself, and all your sounds are loaded into here. I think now, with the changes that they've made this year, I think it's just as powerful. It just depends on your workflow. And say, for instance, again, like you're using your workstation in live sets. You see all these powerful workstations, on stage. And now, like with that pre-hear function, you can turn that off. And if you know the instruments that you want to use, you can browse through, say, you're at church or whatever, and you need a E-piano or something like that, you can browse through, load it up all on the keyboard. You won't have to worry about anything else. So for the people that use Ableton in their live sets, that's something that you can do that, if something happens on the fly and you want to change instruments, you can do that visually here without having to turn around, look at the computer. So that's a great positive about all the changes that they've made here in the Mark II. So now more into the functionality of the keyboard. Music creation, they still have the chord function where you can load preset chords and kind of mess around if you don't know how to play that well. That's a great feature for those for music creation. Say, I'm not that great of a piano player. I know a bunch of scales and stuff, but I can't just play on the fly. But if I have a writer's block or a composer's block, I can go in here, hit the chord feature, and kind of browse through, listen to sounds, changing keys, and kind of get ideas from that. That's a great thing. Automating effects to the sounds that you have loaded into here is super easy with all of these knobs that you have. Switching the arpeggiator on and off, there's a dedicated button to that. There's now a dedicated fixed velocity button, so if you want to play something all at the same audio level, then you can do that with no problem. Now, to keep things short, is this worth buying? Well, for $700, comes with a Complete Select, which is a bank of sounds and instruments that they have, so you can kind of get started. If you have any Complete suite, you can use any MIDI keyboard along with the Complete suite, but this complements the Complete suite very well. I think it's in the best interest to be able to utilize that software in the best possible way by adding an instrument that is tailored to the Complete suite, whether it doesn't matter what it is, 8 through 11, Ultimate or not. Being able to navigate your sounds through here just ultimately creates an easier way for you to make music, in my opinion. And then, like I said, for $700, that gets you started, and you can buy sounds from Native Instruments, or there's other vendors like Output, Arturia, that make sounds that work along with Native Instruments architecture, where you can navigate through their sounds. And it's a good piece of hardware that complements a lot of software, which is where a lot of people are going now. It's much easier to create new instruments in software rather than putting them in a hardware like workstations and upgrading as the years go on. So if you have one machine where you can do all of that and just make software updates, I think it's a plus. Now, for previous owners of the Mark I, the other question is this worth upgrading to? And I would say, I don't know. It just depends on your workflow. The guys at Native Instruments, oh my gosh, thank you so much for allowing me to be able to showcase this product. They sent this to me. And if they hadn't sent it to me, there's nowhere around here that I would have had the chance to be able to play around on this. So if I can't get a hands-on, I'm probably not going to make a purchase. But that's just how I have to try and get my hands on it. So coming from that perspective, I say now that it's definitely worth the upgrade, because it'll increase the speed in which you work, because of the ability to navigate everything you need right here on the screen. It's a beast, man. Like, they really did a good job on listening to what people said in the complaints about the Mark I and integrating it into the Mark II. Definitely the way to go for the future. It's definitely worth saving up and upgrading to, because you're gonna find a way to integrate it into your workflow. If you already have the Mark I, it's gonna fit perfectly with how you work, and you're gonna find that it's much easier to get things laid down, much easier to lay tracks out with this integrated into your workflow. So that's the down and dirty of should you upgrade or not. That's my personal opinion. Other people might have others' opinion, but I haven't heard anything negative about this, really. Everything that I've heard so far from other people, I've watched so many other videos, just trying to get a different perspective, and everything has positive things to say, and I'm on board with everyone else. Like these two new products, the Mark II Complete Control and Maschine Mark III, definitely the wave, man. It's the future. As I continue to dig around, I'm still finding new features, still finding new ways to do things. I'll let you guys know what I find. So if you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer all the questions that you may have. I have questions of my own, so I do my own research. I've had a lot of problems trying to get to this point to be able to do this video. And so I can kind of shed some light on some of the issues that you guys may be having. Like, I had problems with the sample library, the pre-hear functionality, not being able to get my sounds, and it was all basically computer related. So some things like that I can kind of shed some light on, because I've had a hard time. Like, I've had this for about a month, and I'm just now kind of getting around to where my workflow is good. So Let me know what you guys think, and I'll try to answer any questions that you guys have, all right? Thanks for watching. Peace.